Hello everybody, it's Tarun. Welcome to your sixth tutorial in the HTML course. In this tutorial, I'll teach you about more about content elements. Till now, we have covered paragraphs, headings, and lists, but there are a few more special text elements to add to your HTML toolbox that don't fit into a neat category. These are long quotations, which is block quote, performated text, pre, and figures, which is figure and fig caption. One thing these elements do have in common is that they are considered grouping content in HTML5 specification, along with paragraph, HR, the list element, and the generic div, which we'll cover later in this unit. The other thing they share is that browsers typically display them as block elements by default. So first I'll start with long quotations. If you have a long quotation, a testimonial, or a section of copy from another source, you should mark it up as a block quote element. Okay. It is recommended that block quote elements be contained in other elements such as paragraphs, headings, or lists, as I'm going to show you in the example. So let me remove these things first. Okay, and now inside the body, just let me show you with the example. Okay, so this is one paragraph in which I have written something, and then I used block quote, which is a empty element, and inside that I have written one quote. So if I go ahead and save it, and let's see what happens in our browser. So you can see that it just looks like this, and the styling of this can be done with the help of cascading style sheets. Okay, and the block quote is in a category of elements called sectioning roots. Headings in a sectioning root element will not be included in the main document outline. This means that you can have a complex heading hierarchy within a block quote without worrying how it will affect the overall structure of the document. Other sectioning root elements include figure details, field set for organizing form fields, TD, which is a table cell, and a body, because it has its own outline, and which also happens to be the outline of the document. So there is also an inline document queue for short quotations in the flow of text. We'll talk about that in later in this unit. The next topic is performated text. In the last unit, we learned that browsers ignore white spaces such as line returns and character spaces in the source document. But in some types of information, such as code examples or poetry, the white space is important for conveying the meaning. For these purpose, there is the performated text, which is pre-element. Okay, so this is our performated text element. Okay, the pre-element in the example I'm going to show you. Just wait. Okay. So this is one example. So if I go ahead and save it, or just let me alter it some more. Okay, so if I want my text to look like this in the web page, then I'll use performated text element pre only. So if I go ahead and save it, now let's see it's changing in our browser. Okay, so here you can see that your text is being shown like this. This is an example of text with a lot of curious white space. Okay. Performated text is unique in the browser that displays the white spaces exactly as it is typed into the source document. So we can compare it to the paragraph element, in which line returns and character spaces are reduced to a single space. So just let me compare it for you. Okay, now I'll change it to P only. So if I go ahead and save it, and let's see the change in our browser. So you can see that the above text we uses with the pre element is shown like the white spaces which are used in the source document, but in the paragraph element all the white spaces are removed and only single space is used between them. Okay. The next topic which we are going to learn is figures. The figure element is used for content that illustrates or supports some point in the text. A figure may contain an image, a video, a code snippet, text, or even a table. And pretty much anything can go in the flow of web content and should be treated and referenced as a self-contained unit. That means if a figure is removed from its original placement in the main flow, both the figure and the main flow should continue to make sense. Although it is possible to simply drop an image into text, wrapping it in figure text makes sure its purpose explicitly clear. It also allows you to apply special styles to figures but not to other images on the page. So just let me show you with one example. Okay, I have a file pi.jpg in my HTML folder where I saved this index.html. Okay. So a caption can be attached to this figure using the optional fig caption element, which you can use like this. Just let me show you. We'll learn the figure caption element in the next exercise, which we are going to do. Okay, in the next exercise we are going to marking up a recipe. Okay, so let's go ahead and take our recipe. So this is our recipe. Okay. It is up to you that you decide which element is the best semantic match for each chunk of content. You can use paragraphs, headings, list, and at least one special content element. You can write the text right on the page, or if you want to use a text editor and see the results in a browser. The text file can be made. Okay, and the resulting code I'll show you to make a recipe. Or it was just an example. I'll show you. So this is our recipe. Okay, just let me see that whether there is anything wrong or not. So if I go ahead and save it, okay, and if I now run it in my browser, you can see that this is a recipe. Okay, and you can see that it is all organized. In this example, we have used a heading. Okay, the title is also there, and we have used a paragraph to describe the recipe, and then we have also used a quotation here. Okay, and then we have used subheading and unordered list inside it to show you the ingredients. Okay, and after that we have used another heading, and a list which is ordered. So I'll provide this example with these tutorials only, so you can go ahead and make any changes you like to it. So moving forward to the next topic, which is organizing our page content. So far we have the elements we have covered handle very specific bits of content, which is a paragraph, a heading, a figure, and so on. Prior to HTML5, there was no way to group these bits into larger parts other than wrapping them in generic division, which is div element. Okay, so just let me, this was our earlier program, and this is our division, generic division element div. So I'll cover div in detail later. HTML5 in more detail later. In HTML5, introduce new elements that give semantic meaning to sections of a typical web page or application, including sections which has a element called section, then articles which have article has their element, then navigation which has nav, and tangentially related content which is aside, headers, okay, it is nav, and headers which is there with the element name header, and footers which is there with the element name footer. The new element names are based on a Google study that looked at the 20 names given to generic division elements. Curiously, the specification lists the old address element as a section as well. So we'll look at that one here too. The elements discussed in this section are well supported by current desktop and mobile browsers, but there is a snag with Internet Explorer version 8 and earlier. So HTML support in Internet Explorer, I'll tell you about something about that. Most browsers today support the new HTML5 semantic elements, and for those that don't, creating a style sheet rule that tells browser to format each one as a block level element is all that is needed to make them behave correctly. So elements such as section, article, navigation, and tangentially related content, headers, footers, H group, etc. Unfortunately, that fix won't work with Internet Explorer versions 8 and earlier. Versions 9 and later are fine. Not only do early Internet Explorer browsers not recognize the elements, they also ignore any styles applied to them. The solution is to use JavaScript to create each elements so Internet Explorer knows it exists and will allow nesting and styling. You can use JavaScript, which you can learn in the JavaScript on the web. So before going to the next section, which is sections and articles only, I'll show you the example of footer figure which I missed out by mistake. So let me save it, and if I refresh it, you can see that my figure image is being shown in the web page. Okay, this was the figure element which does this thing only. So now let's talk about sections and articles. Long documents are easier to use when they are divided into small parts. For example, books are divided into chapters. Newspapers have sections for local news, sports, comics, and so on. To divide long web documents into smaller sections, we use the element section. Okay, sections typically have a heading inside the section element and any other content that has a meaningful reason to be grouped together. The section element has a broad range of uses, from dividing a whole page into major sections or identifying sections within a single article. In the following example, a document with information about typography resources has been divided into sections based on a resource type. Okay, so let me just show you the example. So If I save it, sorry, if I save and then I refresh my web page, you can see that the browser window shows something like this. We can use the article element for self-contained work that could stand alone or to be reused in a different context. It is useful for magazines and newspaper articles, blog posts, comments, or other items that could be extracted for external use. You can think of it as a specialized section element that answers the question, could this appear on another site and make sense, with yes. To make things interesting, a long article could be broken into a number of sections as shown here. Okay, just let me show you. So if I go ahead and save it, you can see that the page has been divided into sections, and the section and article elements are easily confused, particularly because it is possible to nest one in the other and vice versa. Keep in mind that if the content is self-contained and could appear outside the current context, it is best marked up as an article. Okay. Another thing that section and article have in common under the hood is that both are what HTML calls sectioning elements. When a browser runs across a sectioning element in the document, it creates a new item in the document's outline automatically. In prior HTML versions, only headings H1, H2, etc. triggered new outline terms or items. The new navigation and aside for sidebar-like information are also sectioning elements. So we'll move to the next topic, which is aside or sidebars. Okay, and you need not worry about any code in the course which I am using. I'll provide you the codes of this course, each and every code. So I'll start with aside here. The aside element is used for sidebars. Okay. The aside element identifies content and that is related but tangentially to the surrounding content. Okay, first of all, aside is a tag which needs opening and closing both. So this is the syntax for aside tag. In print, it is equivalent to a sidebar, but they couldn't call the element sidebar because putting something on the side is a presentational description, not semantic. And a sidebar is a good model for using the aside element. And aside can be used to pull quotes, background information, list of links, callouts, or anything else that might be associated with the document. So in the next example, aside element is used for a list of links related to an article. Okay. So if I go ahead and save it, and now let's see the change in our browser window. Okay, so the aside element has no default rendering, so you'll need to make it as a block element and adjust its appearance and layout with the style sheet rules. Okay. So this was all from my side in this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'll start with next element, which is navigation. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next tutorial.